Good morning, everybody. Welcome today to this digital forum. Thank you for being with us. We've got a packed agenda today. Lots of subjects. I'll go through that in a moment, but I hope we're all well. We've got some people putting some bits in the chat section. We've got everyone from Southampton to Manchester and Isle of Wight as well. I'm in Leeds at the moment. Weather's improved a little bit from yesterday, but yeah, I think we're all probably experiencing the same things at the minute. But yeah, thank you for being with us. We've got, I think, over 300 people registered to come on today. We've got 134 with us at the moment, still joining. So yeah, just during a bit of an introduction from me, a bit of housekeeping, hopefully we'll get some more joining. So yeah, packed agenda. Just a quick shout out and a thank you to our sponsor today, Purian Sustainable Solutions. They're doing a talk after the break today on their system called InsectRAM, which is a great digital system for reporting and trend analysis and technical visits, things like that. So we'll hear from our sponsors just after the break today. The rest of the agenda, so the title, I think you might have all noticed today that the title is The Science of Pest Management. So just tweaking up a little bit, getting a few different subjects. Keep the interest, kind of delve into the depths of the science behind pest control. So just after I've done some introductions, we've got Dr. Will Hentley from the University of Sheffield, who's going to be talking about how the science can contribute to pest control. And then after William, we've got Pest Solutions. Chris Kajanar going to be talking about tackling rodent resistance the right way. Resistance, whether it's genetic or behavioural, is certainly a subject that we will talk about quite a lot at the moment. So yeah, that'll be a great talk as well. And then just after Chris, we'll have Sophie Thorogood from Pelsis talking behind the scenes, evaluating efficacy of insect light traps. Again, time of year, isn't it, when we're going to be needing these things and making sure we're understanding the full functioning of them. And then after that, we'll have a comfort break just for 10 minutes at 10 past 11, just to grab a quick coffee and a biscuit, whatever it is you fancy. And as I mentioned, we'll be coming back with Purian talking about their InsectRAM and conquering compliance audits with it. So a quick 20-minute guide for pest controllers and how you can utilise that. That'll be after the break. And then after Craig there, who's going to be speaking about InsectRAM, we've got Michael Rust from the University of California talking about German cockroaches, a never-ending challenge. So yes, the time difference for Michael on that is going to be quite extreme. So yeah, we really appreciate our American colleagues joining us and delivering some great presentations. And then just last up, we'll have the future of pest management. We've got a BPCA academic working relations group. We've got Fergal Flynn, who will be talking to us on that and what the work is going on with that academic working relations group. And then just before we finish, we'll have Dee Ward Thompson coming on, and who's our head of technical and membership. She'll be talking about the association news and some industry updates, which, there's lots going on, isn't there? So yeah, that's the agenda for today. As I said, I'm Natalie Bungay. I'm just going to be your host and keeping everybody under control and making sure you're all behaving yourselves. Most people here are probably really familiar with how these forums work and how Zoom works, but just as a quick reminder, so we've got a chat section. A lot of you are putting saying hello in there, asking about CPD, which I'll come to in a minute. But yeah, use that chat section for exactly who you are, just to say hello, where you're from, any comments that you want to make. Obviously keep it all polite and friendly. But also you can use that section if you have any technical issues, so any sound or visual issues, just pop it in there. My colleague Lauren is just sitting in the background there, and she'll try and help out and suggest some helpful remedies. Normally it's turn it off and turn it on, but hopefully, as I said, my quick sort of 5-minute introduction here is just making sure we've got none of those problems occurring. So chat section for just general chat and any technical issues, and then also the Q&A section. At the end of each presentation today, I'll pop back up with the presenter, and we'll go through any questions you have. So make sure you put it in the Q&A section, not the chat section, because we might not see it. So again, if you do have any questions, Q&A section only. But again, we'll try and keep an eye on it, and Lauren and I will just try and encourage anybody that's put any questions in the chat section to put it over into the Q&A. Okay, keeps it nice and neat. Just a really quick reminder in terms of events. We've got 14th of August, our next digital forum, and it's actually on unusual pests and how to treat them. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. The agenda will be up on the website that you can have a look at. And then in terms of physical events, we've got 2 more this year. We've got 18th of September in Belfast. So anybody that's in Ireland, Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, then feel free to pop along. As I said, Belfast, 18th of September, get registered. And then the 27th of November, we've got a physical forum in Leeds, so local to me, which would be nice. So get to see some familiar faces hopefully there. So get registered for those physical events, and we've got a couple more digitals coming up. Just keep an eye on it, okay? So CPD points, there's 3 for today. Make sure if you do decide to watch any of the presentations back later on, of which you can do, then make sure you get your points registered, because we won't know you're doing that necessarily. Or if you share it with any colleagues, or maybe there's a few of you sat around the laptop right now watching it, and actually only one of you have registered. Only you who've registered will get those points automatically uploaded. So again, if you are sat around a laptop and you haven't registered yourself, then you can just get onto your relevant scheme, BPCA registered, or the basis prompt, and get those points registered. But 3 for today, okay? Fantastic. I think that's all of it. There's no messages anywhere saying there's any technical issues, so that's good. And yeah, so without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. William Hentley from the University of Sheffield. William, are you there?
Yes, I am there. Hello, good morning.
There you are. Fabulous. Is it William or Will? What would you like?
Will, unless I'm in trouble, then it's William.
Okay, great. Yeah, same with me. Natalie, if I'm in trouble. Nat, if I'm not, which mostly it's Natalie. Let's be honest. So, but great to meet you. I'll let you do your own introductions if that's great. Tell us what you're going to talk about, and yeah, fabulous. Thank you so much for being with us.
All right, thank you very much for the invite. So I'll just I'll share my screen with you. Hopefully this worked earlier.
Great, I'll let you know when it's popped up. There we go, it's working.
Got some slides now?
Yep, got some slides, yep.
Lovely. Right, so as Nat's already said, my name's Will. I am a scientist at the University of Sheffield. I spent quite a long, many years now studying bed bugs. You can see a picture here of my arm being donated to, hang on, it's moved, to scientific research. And what I wanted to do today was to just talk about some ways in which science is contributing to pest control. And when I was preparing for this talk, I went on to Gen AI and asked it to give me a picture about how science contributes to pest control. And this is what it came up with. There's a few iterations, but this was pretty much the first edit. And one of the things that struck me about this picture, so Gen AI, if any of you don't use it, it uses information based on the internet. So if there's a lot of information about a particular thing, it has a bias and it'll produce more, it's more likely to produce that kind of content. And what was really stood out for me on this was the fact that the amount of pictures here, can you see my mouse moving, by the way?
I can't at the moment. Oh, no, I can. Yes, I can see your
laser pointer now. There we go. One of the things that really stood out for me was that there's loads of examples. Oh, keeps moving for some reason. Loads of examples of chemical pesticides, which science has contributed a lot of that understanding to pest management, but actually science can contribute a lot more than that. And today I really wanted to focus on other aspects in which science is contributing to pest management, and I wanted to unashamedly focus on my own study system. But here are just a few examples of ways in which science is contributing. So one of the big things is our understanding of data. So we work with really big data sets, and for us, doing analyses is a day-to-day process. And so we find it very easy to look for patterns in big data. So we could looking at dispersal patterns, so how a pest species is spreading. We can look at spatial information, so we can look at how pests are distributed across space and even time. So we can identify things like hotspots. And By looking at data, we can identify current trends, but if we have enough of the data, we can actually predict future trends. And this is something that we do, broadly speaking, when we're looking at ecology. We make predictions about climate change, for example, but we could do the same thing for pest species. We also have labs. Obviously, everyone thinks about scientists, they think about labs, and we obviously, a lot of those labs have contributed to the development of various different chemicals. Sorry about the noise of fire engines outside. Hopefully they'll pass. But one of the things we do in labs is things like genetic analysis. So years ago, people used to think that this is something that cost thousands of pounds and took a long time to do. But actually nowadays it is very cheap, it's very quick, and it's almost like a routine thing that we do. And you can use it as a tool, and it's useful for trying to understand how pest species are dispersing, and also looking at treatment success. And I'll give an example of this in a few minutes. And other aspects is detecting pests. So I don't know if you've ever been to an airport where you've been swabbed down as you've gone through the security gate, where they're testing for various different drugs. And so we can use those same kind of analyses to detect various different pest species. So usually every animal leaves some form of a signature, and so we can kind of look for that. And then also there's the idea of ecology. So I am an ecologist by training, where I've worked to try and understand how the natural world works. And a really good example of how that's contributed to pest management is integrated pest management. So, for example, the use of natural enemies, which we see quite a lot in agriculture. And actually, I think increasingly we're seeing it applied in the domestic setting as well. But I really wanted to focus today on my comfort zone of bed bugs. This might not be the comfort zone for many of you, but it definitely is for me. I think they're a really interesting little creature, which kind of captured my interest probably about 10 years ago now. And I'm really going to focus today on how the work that I've done in trying to understand the dispersal of bed bugs. So how they're getting about the place. So by using big data sets, and also by using genetic techniques to try and work out what's going on. So for any of you who are not familiar with this, I'm not quite sure my slides are moving, but I'll keep moving. So for any of you who are not familiar with bed bugs, this is a bed bug. So the most common one you're likely to come across is Cymex lectularius, particularly common in the UK. The one on the right here is Cymex hemipterus. So that's a tropical bed bug. It's not really found in the UK at the moment, but it is increasingly spreading across Europe, and has been found to be established in parts of Northern Europe. So it's only a matter of time until we start to see both of these guys. But as a cursory glance, if you saw one of these in a property, you basically treat them the same way. They're a bed bug, and they probably need to be got rid of. And bed bugs, so I put this slide here. They like to form aggregations in people's homes, and this is an example of a fairly big aggregation of bed bugs. But I like this picture here because it shows you all the different life stages of bed bugs. So we've got some of the dark brown ones are some adults. This little thing here is quite a large juvenile. We've got some really, really tiny first instars there, and we've got some eggs. And a classic sign of bedbug aggregations are these black spots, which are usually around the outside of the aggregations. So this is their feces. They're black because they contain iron from when they've been breaking down our blood. So they do conduct electric, these little spots of feces. But it's always a classic sign of showing where these bed bugs are. And because they live in cracks and crevices, and they kind of cluster around these aggregations, it makes them notoriously difficult to control. And I went on, it's probably about 9 years ago now, I went on a pest control course in New York, where I learned best practice about how to treat bed bugs. And I went on some excursions, I guess, and we went to an apartment. And this was an example of an apartment where a member of the public had treated a single aggregation of bed bugs with an aerosol pesticide that they'd got hold of. And what happened was that this aerosol it didn't kill the bed bugs, it just caused them to disperse across the entire apartment. and every single crack and crevice in this apartment had bed bugs. And you can see these little spots. And so every crack that you looked in, so this is just around a door frame, if you looked in each one of these cracks, you'll have found at least one bed bug hiding in there. And so what was a fairly manageable problem to start with was a really big problem after the member of public had tried to treat it themselves. And it just really highlights the difficulties in controlling these bugs. And I couldn't talk about bed bugs without talking about their bizarre mating system. It's the thing that captures scientists, especially beardy white academics, because they love a good penis in insects, and this is one of them. So bed bugs, they have this weird mating system where it's called traumatic mating. And so the male, so we've got the male, this is the male here. When the male mates with the female, he ignores the fully functional female genital tract and instead stabs her in the side. And this, we don't know why this bizarre mating system is evolved. It's pretty weird, but actually it's been quite successful for them for some reason. And this is a picture of the male intromittent organ, and it actually looks like a hypodermic needle. So it's really evolved to that task. But what's really interesting about these guys is that they can live for a long time. They can live for over a year in the right conditions. And that female can continue living, can continue reproducing, even though it's constantly being introduced to bacteria from within the environment. And so the immune system of these tiny little insects must be really robust. And that was one of the areas that I've studied in quite some detail, not so much about controlling them, but actually trying to understand insect immune system as a whole. But ultimately, trying to understand in terms of like pest management, one of the golden things that we really need to figure out is how they're getting about the place. So understanding insect bedbug dispersal, and I imagine it's the same for quite a lot of different pest species out there. So how are they getting about the place? And for bed bugs, it's particularly interesting because they don't fly. They're not particularly good at walking either. And so there's probably other ways in which they're spreading. And every so often, we see these media outbreaks of bed bugs where apparently there's loads and loads of bed bugs suddenly occurring. So most recently, we had this from France, where some viral videos of bed bugs on the underground. But in reality, bed bugs have always been there. There's bed bugs have always been on the underground. I went to London a few months ago. I had a look on the underground. I definitely found signs of bed bugs. I knew what I was looking for. It's not unusual, but every so often the public gets a sudden hyper awareness of it, either from viral videos or something in the media. And it really highlights that how are they getting about the place. And this is one of the things that I've tried to focus on in some of my research, is what drives these patterns of distribution. And you know what, the truth of it is that we are driving it. We are the cause of their spread. So bedbugs evolved with humans. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest that bedbugs, or one of their ancestors, were still found with our ancestors too when we were still in the caves. And so they are really, really adapted to the way that we live. And if anything, we have made bedbugs into the things that they are. And this picture here just shows you an infographic of all the different transport networks around the world. And ultimately, this is how bedbugs are getting around the place. We are moving them around. So our patterns of movement are what are driving the movement of these insects. So basically, to understand the dispersal of bedbugs, we need to understand ourselves and how we're getting about the place. But one of the biggest problems about this is actually proving it. Like, how do we prove that actually it's us that's doing it? And how do we understand how they actually spread around an environment? And quite a few years ago now, I looked into this by the good old Freedom of Information Act, where I could request data from public bodies. In this case, it was councils across the UK. So what I wanted to do here was I wanted a big data set so I could look for any trends within the occurrence of bedbug cases in the UK. And what I found was that, unsurprisingly, when you put all this data together, the bedbug cases are increasing. So this is just a modelled plot, and this is the number of bedbug cases, and this is time along the x-axis. And basically, it's increasing. We probably all know that. And it's just increasing. It's probably increased, and it's continued to increase in a similar way. But also interestingly is that there is a seasonal pattern in the occurrence of bedbugs. So you see a strong peak in the number of bedbug cases that are reported and treated during August and September. So for most insects, particularly pests within outside, that kind of makes sense because it's August, it's warm. Well, it should be warm, but for a bedbug, this doesn't really make sense because bedbugs live in your home and they never venture outside. Our homes are centrally heated, and so generally speaking, you wouldn't expect such a strong pattern to be coming in the seasons. And so there's something else that's probably driving this pattern that we can see during August and September. It's not necessarily the climate. And to look into this in a bit more detail, I'm going to focus on Birmingham, not because Birmingham has got a lot of bedbugs, but because they gave me lots of data. And they gave me data with postcodes, which allowed me to map the distribution of bedbugs across the Birmingham city area, which allowed us to produce some really nice plots of this. So hopefully I'm going to play a GIF in a second that shows this over time. There we go. It's played on its own. It'll start again from the beginning, but each increment of this little GIF that's playing is a different month. The picture up here is a map of Birmingham, and this is where all the cases have been mapped. And the darker the red, the more cases there were within that area. And what you can see from this is that the bedbugs cases are occurring across the city area. It's not isolated to one particular area. They are concentrated in certain areas, though, where you have quite a lot of cases. But every year you see this cycling of bedbug cases. So it's not a one-off. Every year there's a peak in the summer and a trough in the winter. And the other thing that's really apparent is that it's increasing. Year on year, there's this increase in bedbug numbers. And as I said earlier, this is probably driven by our travel. And so if you could then map or look at our travel habits. So I used here an example of the number of passengers traveling from Birmingham International Airport. Convenient, it's at Birmingham. So this is the red line on this graph. So you've got to see peaks and troughs, again, as you'd expect at Birmingham International Airport. So obviously everyone's summer, everyone goes abroad. And then in green, we have the lines of the number of bedbug cases that are occurring. And it really nicely maps onto this. It doesn't definitely explain this. It's a nice correlation, though. And what I think is particularly interesting is over time, you see that there's a lag after. So you have a peak in the number of air travel, and then you have a peak in the number of bedbugs. And this makes sense because you're going to go home, you go traveling, you bring them back, and then by chance, it'll take a few months, a few weeks for you to notice the fact you've got bedbugs. And so you would expect that peak to be after people have been traveling. So it's some really compelling evidence that we are actually driving these problems. But again, we can't really prove it. There's no hard evidence for this. It's more like a correlation that you can see here. If only we could find them on these suitcases traveling around. And so by just using this big data, I could gain a lot of information about how these bedbugs are dispersing across the cities. I've produced some plots like this for the council where there's really high, where we can identify areas where there's hotspots. So this is usually areas of high density housing, as you might expect, but it's not necessarily associated with deprivation. It's more to do with density of the population. But ultimately, we need more data. And if anybody out there would be interested to share data with me, please do. I'd love to have a chat with you afterwards or an email at some point, because the more data we have, the more predictions we can make with this. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about something a little bit different. I was talking about using of genetics. So again, as I said, people used to consider genetics as some really complex, high-end scientific technique, but actually nowadays it's quite routine. So I'm not a geneticist. I don't have the foggiest of how it works, but I use it as a tool the same way that I'd use any other tool to get a job done. And what we can do is we can look at relatedness. So we can look at the genetic relatedness of individuals to each other. And this is quite a straightforward process to do now. And a project that I did a few years ago for a well-known airline company was that they were having issues with bed bugs on their aircraft, and they wanted some help in trying to understand what it is that's going on. And this is definitely one of the areas where science can contribute, where you've got this mysterious problem that's going on. And what was happening was that they had aircraft such as this one, where they had bed bugs in business, and quite a lot of bed bugs in business actually, and a few bed bugs in the economy. And as you can imagine, this was causing issues to the customers. So this was also costing the airline a huge amount of money, because to deal with this problem, they were having to keep the aircraft on the ground and heat treat the whole aircraft. So whenever the aircraft's not flying, it's costing the company a huge sum of money. And so they really needed to understand what was going on. And what they wanted to know was whether or not all these bed bugs came from one source. So did one person bring them on and they spread across the aircraft? Or are they coming from different places? So is each person a different person bringing a different bed bug on? And so I took samples of these bed bugs and I did genetic analysis on them to work out how related they are to each other. And these different colors represent the relatedness. So if they're the same color, they were very closely related to each other. And as you can see, they're all quite different from each other, so really suggesting that people were bringing these bed bugs on in unique cases. It wasn't just one bed bug getting on and they were spreading like you might expect in an apartment block. And so it's a very different dynamic to what you might see in high density housing. But you still had a few where they might have spread from one seat to another, but mostly it was new infestations coming each time. And then the other question that they had was, how effective is our treatment? And that is something that the genetic analysis was also really useful to do. So they treated the aircraft to try and get rid of the bed bugs. And what was happening was they didn't all go. And this was a mystery to them. And what they found was there's two pockets that happened to keep occurring. So this green one was a particularly interesting one because they kept getting bed bugs on the same seat, but on different aircrafts flying the same route. And what it was that there's one particular gentleman that liked to sit, we're creature of habit, aren't we? So he liked to sit in the same seat in business every time he traveled. And it seems that this guy, probably unbeknown to him, was actually bringing these bed bugs on every single time he went onto aircraft. And so this was a human-induced problem here, whereas the same guy bringing it on every time. And then this one here, actually just came back again. And this is where the treatment was not effective. So what was happening was that they were treating the aircraft, and just by chance, these guys learned that if they ran away from the heat into the aircraft frame, which is aluminium, so it's heat sink, they survived, and so then they could come back. And so as a result, they had to really carefully check the aircraft after heat treating, just to make sure that they had actually got rid of all these bugs. And so that was just a couple of examples of how science is contributing to the control of bed bugs, but not by producing lots of pesticides. And I continue to do this kind of work by looking at the communication. So this picture that you saw at the beginning was me collecting the air around the bed bugs so that we could understand whether or not they're communicating with each other while they're feeding. So are they attracting people in? And if they are, can we manipulate this? Can we take advantage of this? I've already mentioned about the bed bug distribution and whether or not we can get a better understanding of this. And also there's the whole thing of public understanding. And so as my example from New York, generally speaking, if the public try and deal with bed bugs, they make it a lot worse. And so it's making sure the public actually understand what bed bugs are and what they need to do when they try to get rid of them, i.e. call a professional that actually knows what they're doing, rather than going to B&Q and buying some aerosol pesticides, which would probably make it worse. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you.
Great, thanks, Will. That was yeah, fascinating. Bed bugs is definitely a really big subject we're always talking about, certainly here at BPCA, but also, members do struggle with, bed bug treatments more and more these days. So, yeah, we get those calls in. Fabulous. We've got a couple of couple of questions. So, and this is quite a common one that we get as well from members of the public, more so than members. But Robert says, how much of a risk is there of picking up bed bugs on the tube or train? And is there any way to like reduce it other than just not sitting down?
It's a good question, and actually we don't know. So bed bugs really hate moving objects. So if you're shuffling around, you'd think that they wouldn't actually go onto you. So they also don't like skin. They don't like to stand on your skin. So it's probably just by chance that you'd actually get them crawling onto you. But I think, generally speaking, that there's certain seats on a tube where I think it's where people sit there for a long period of time. The ones that did go around in the circuit, and that's why they're an issue on aircraft, because people are sat there for a long period of time, and then the bed bugs come out and start to feed.
Yeah, you get a good feed. Is that you're saying about the aircraft and the heat treatment they're doing? Is it like a whole tube treatment? I suppose the whole tube of the aircraft, or is it sort of focused with a handheld, steamer or whatever?
No, they put it in a hangar and heat the whole thing. So they pump the entire internal area of heat. It's incredible. Yeah. It must be a huge job, but because they're made of aluminium, all the bed bugs need to do is just work out to avoid the heat, and it's a whole new problem for them.
I suppose because with the treatments like that in homes, we put probes in cold spots like in sofa cracks and crevices, and make sure that those spots get to the heat. But I suppose you can't really do that of an aircraft, because it's just aluminium. But also you probably have to heat it so hot that it would start destroying things that you don't want to destroy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just an example of the same things we're seeing in the use of pesticides, and that the species adapting, right? So if you don't kill all of them, the one that just by chance happens to have a trait which means that it avoids heat is the one that then becomes more and more occurrence. You get more of them. It's the same with pesticide resistance, isn't it? You only need one, and then all of a sudden it spreads throughout the population.
Yeah, those one or two are kind of safe, and then within a few months you've got a whole population that's
exactly. Yes, it's how you make sure you treat it enough, to get rid of them all.
Yeah,
it's particularly hard in UK homes because we're bricks and mortar. It's hard to heat that up compared to probably more wooden framed houses where they can heat up a lot easier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. George has asked about airports as well, but do you think more can be done with using dogs maybe to check luggage? But then I suppose it's not the luggage that's going on underneath the plane that's the issue. It's the people who are sitting above and bringing their carry-ons. I don't know. Are dogs being used in airports a bit?
Well, sniffer dogs, as I'm sure many of you, maybe some of you actually used them. They're really good at finding bed bugs as long as they're well trained. It's a case of scale, isn't it? There's so many people traveling that trying to check suitcases or something like that for bed bugs. It's just an insurmountable task trying to get rid of them. And you're right. They're not in the hold. They're coming in on people.
Yeah.
Because they're in the seat, so they're in that specific seat where someone sat. So actually, we've long assumed that they're on their suitcase, but actually maybe they're not. They're somewhere. They're actually on the person themselves.
It's probably pretty cold in the hold as well, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how cold it gets. It depends whether they carry pets and stuff, I guess. But where the luggage is, it's probably below 13 degrees, is it? I'm not sure.
It's cold, yeah. And the problem with you got differences in so business, for example, business class, the seats are really complex and actually they're really expensive. So that the companies rarely change the business seats. And so they very rarely have a deep clean because they're very rarely taken to bits. Whereas in economy, the cattle class, where most people go, they change the seats quite regularly and they're not very complicated. So they're quite easy to find the bed bugs in those. Yeah. So, sucks to go in business.
So maybe when we're walking through the plane past the business seats into economy, we can be like, I don't think, we're maybe safer than you.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't feel so bad about it. Another question. So Matt's asked, bedbugs seem to have an affinity to resting on wooden objects. Is the thinking that they evolved from tree nesting bat bugs or cave dwelling species?
I think it probably just more to do with the texture of it. Right, so they, like a lot of insects, they don't like smooth surfaces, and obviously wood is a really good surface for them. But we think they evolved from actually cave dwelling bats, but it's a bit of an unknown. But somewhere along those lines, But the bed bug back then would probably look quite different to the one that we have now, because obviously it's constantly adapted over time to us, basically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've got lots of questions coming in, so I'll try and get through them all. We've got a good 5 minutes left, so we're good, hopefully. Regarding the business class and beds, the bed bugs as well, is it maybe that the source of the bed bugs was possibly hotels or commercial accommodations, considering it was business class, or maybe they're bringing it in from there? But then, as I said, it's the same person, wasn't it, on that example you gave?
I think one of the things that it was probably an eye opener for me when I started looking at bed bugs, and when I started, going with pest, control professionals out in the field, people's homes, was that bed bugs, everyone gets them, rich or poor. It's the same with rats. Everyone has rats. And it's the same with that. So, I went to some houses, in really fancy houses in Kensington before, and they've got bed bugs. They've got loads of them. So the chances are that they are, but you're right, it could be that they're from hotels. And we know that hotels have a continuous issue with bed bugs. But I think, I don't think it really matters whether or not it's someone that's wealthy or not. Everyone seems to have them. It's just how we still don't know for sure how they actually get around. Is it on the suitcases, on the baggage? I don't think it'll be on people's clothes, but I'm just saying that because I think it would. I've got no hard evidence for that.
Yeah, we do tend to do that a lot with bed bugs, don't we, in the industry, in terms of, well, it could be this or it could be that, in terms of their travel. But again, we don't really know, which is makes everyone excited to talk about it.
The study I did a few years ago, just looking at bed bugs aggregating on dirty clothes, it's a really obvious one. Everyone assumed it, but actually no one has ever tested it, which really surprised me. And it actually surprised me how much they did. It's a really convincing result that they definitely do aggregate on our dirty clothes. And it just surprised me that we've gone this far and no one's actually thought, well, we should probably test that.
Yeah, indeed. Definitely need some more of that. Question here from Opar. So can bed bugs be starved to death, e.g. by abandoning the house where they infested for some periods, or do they only survive on humans? And do they only survive on humans?
They will feed on other hosts, so any pets within the property that they can feed on. They can live for a surprisingly a long time. I've got some bed bugs on my desk from a summer project last year, and they haven't been fed. So they're just sat on my desk for a good year now.
They're still alive, are they? Or
still alive? Yeah, they're not very
really
happy, but they are still alive.
Okay, blimey! Not even just so a year without you giving them any nutrition. They haven't gone into like a diapause, or kind of they're still.
Well, who knows? There must be something going on, because I can't think of many other species that could just sit there for a year and just not die.
That's crazy, because we're very aware in the industry that they can live for some time, but generally they'll go into sort of decrease their metabolism, go into a diapause so that they can survive. But it seems like they're still quite moving around.
And this is just my desk. It's not special conditions. I'm not looking after them carefully in like a climate control. It's just my desk.
Blimey. Okay, that's So to answer that question, abandoning a home is not an option. Control the bed bugs. And also it can disperse them probably, because they might go, do you know what, we're going to go and look elsewhere and start moving into other areas, whether it's a neighbour or if you're a detached house, into other rooms. So
and I know Dr. Rich Naylor, some of you probably heard of him. He's done a lot of work trying to figure out at what point it is that bed bugs suddenly think, you know what, I'm going to wander off and find someone else. And I still don't think we know exactly what triggers that.
A lot of us familiar with Richard and his studies as well. It's always good to get enthusiastic academics on the case. Helps us all. Michael here said, how far away are we from finding a weakness in the bed bug immune system?
That's a good question. So fairly far, I guess. Really far. So it's really sophisticated. I did think about showing a video of their I got a video of their little immune cells just gobbling up bacteria within that particular site where they're mating. And so the part of the problem is our understanding of insect immunity. Most of it's based on fruit flies, and they have a weird immune system. And so it's one of the things I've kind of been battling to is actually just improve our understanding of how insect immune systems work, not just to control them, but also like just within the natural world beneficial species. We don't know if they're sick, we just know if they're dead. So we need to, kind of understand that.
I know I think it's in the US, they have is it sort of a treatment that's to do with fungal spores, I think, and they can use it to infect basically colonies, and they infect each other. And we don't have it in the UK at the moment. I think we want to, but have you come across that at all?
No, I've seen that, and occasionally we've got in the past we've had random infestations of a fungal pathogen that's killed them off. The only problem with fungal pathogens is it usually doesn't just kill bed bugs. And so if you're spreading it within a property or within the environment, it could be killing the insects that actually we need. And so I think that's why.
Good. Yeah.
So that's the caution there, I think. And it's the same with like introducing, where we've introduced insect species to a country for controlling something. 9 times out of 10, at some point that goes wrong down the line. So
it's an exact thought I had. I thought, well, no, surely it must be fine if they're using it. But then again, UK, US, and sometimes we have different approaches to things. We're very cautious, I think, here, and I think that's one of the cautions that we've all got in our minds. But yeah, good to hear that the desire to understand that immune system a lot more, and then help with the increasing populations and the struggles we have in the industry dealing with them would be good to know. We're 1 minute over time. I just wanted to quickly ask this last one. Someone's asked about cruise ships, and has there been any sort of pattern analysis on cruise ships, or has it just been aircraft?
No, I'd love to. My brother actually works on them, and he has told me many times about the problems they have with bed bugs on there. So far, no one's been in touch, but I think it'd be a really interesting one to look at.
Yeah. Fabulous. Well, if I hear anything, I'll let you know if I have any contacts.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That was really, really interesting, and a nice sort of different angle to come at things as well. So are you going to be sticking around for the rest of the event, or have you got to shoot off?
No, I'll be sticking around for the event. I think it'd be interesting to see some of these talks. And thank you very much for the invite as well. I really appreciate it.
It's really, really great to have you. Really great to have you. I mean, in the chat section, if anyone's got any extra questions for you, they can pop it in there if you keep an eye on it. But thank you so much, Will. That was really appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.